I'm just walking my dog, singing my song, strolling along. Oh, it's just me and my dog, catching some sun. We can't go wrong. My life was lonely and blue. Yeah, I was sad as a sailor. I was an angry one too.
Hi, and welcome to Rescue Roundtable. I'm Mary Catalano, and we have a very special guest here today who happens to be a veterinarian, which is, boy, I've got a lot of questions for her. She's also an activist. Dr. Armaiti May, thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited about you because you have so much interest in animal rights, and we want to know how you got involved in that as a veterinarian. And you graduated from UC Davis.
Yes.
Right.
I graduated from UC Davis in 2005, and I've been in practice for a little over 3 years now. I first became involved really as a college student at UC Berkeley. I always wanted to be a vet since I was a little girl, and I always had an empathy for animals and had pets growing up.
Did you have a lot of animals in your household when you were a child?
Not a whole lot, but I had dogs and cats, and I would love to hang out with them and take them on walks. And then when I went to college, I got more exposed to some of the issues surrounding animal cruelty in factory farms. I read a book called Diet for a New America by John Robbins, and I went vegan. I was vegetarian before then. My mom raised me vegetarian, and I was always opposed to eating animals out of respect for their lives, but I didn't realize that there was cruelty inherent in the dairy and egg industries. So I made the transition to becoming vegan while a student at UC Berkeley, and I became involved in an organization on campus called Cal Vegetarians. We were really active with trying to improve the dorm cafeteria vegan options, working with the personnel, because initially there weren't very many good options available. And we were successful actually in helping to have them provide a greater variety of vegan food options for students in the dorms where I was for all 4 years there.
At UC Berkeley?
Yes.
It's a shock that it would be your age that would come up with that, because that's a very proactive university, and you would have thought they would have come up with it a lot earlier than your generation. It's like,
well, they had made some progress before I was there, but there was room for improvement. So we had some petitions we gathered signatures to help with proper labeling of the food, because sometimes the workers would get confused. They wouldn't know what vegan meant, and you get there to the front of the line and there'd be this line of students behind you, and you'd be like, okay, is this vegan? And then they would say, oh, I don't know. And then they would go check with the manager, and then they would come back and, oh no, it has cheese in it. And so
lunch is over. Lunchtime's over.
So pretty much it's a salad and that sort of thing. But actually I have very fond memories from my time as a UC Berkeley student. And in addition to working with the dorm cafeteria personnel, we also worked with providing vegan food for the student body. We put on various giveaway events such as the Great American Meat Out and Vegan Thanksgiving, where we had donations of vegan food from various different companies that we were able to give out to students for free, along with literature about the benefits of pursuing a vegetarian diet.
So now when you went to vet school, of course, there's a lot of, you went to UC Davis,
Yes.
right? And there's a lot of old things that were going on there as far as the practice and educating new vets and the practice of how they treated animals in the vet schools. And what happened with you?
Well, it was a bit of a rude awakening in more ways than one, in that typically what has been the practice up until maybe the last 10 to 20 years in many vet schools is that they use animals from the shelters, or sometimes they purposely breed animals specifically to be killed for use in dissection in an anatomy lab. And so that is a huge ethical issue, and the use of animals in the surgery.
What type of animals would they breed?
Dogs mostly, also cats, horses, cows.
They make them to kill them.
Specifically the dogs, but the other animals they auction off from stockyards, or if they're no longer wanted or needed by their owners, then they get sold to the school some way or another. So for our first freshman year anatomy lab, we had dog cadavers we worked on, and those came from the pound. And then I'm not quite sure where they obtained the other cadavers, the horse, cow, and other cadavers we worked with, but they were pretty, the majority of them were the dog cadavers that we worked on. And so that was a hard thing to deal with. And another thing that I became involved with was I became involved in the Student Animal Welfare Committee. I was the president for about a year, and we primarily focused on helping the administration provide a humane alternative to what they were offering in their third-year surgery curriculum. In the elective surgery curriculum, they had dogs who were brought from the pound and then put through surgical procedures and then euthanized or terminated at the end of the procedure. And this was something that was completely unnecessary because there are so many humane alternatives to this.
Right.
In the core surgery curriculum,
were they operated on because there was something wrong with them, or because they were just being?
No, it was just to teach students how to do these certain surgeries.
Oh God, it's awful.
And so I was involved with trying to get the administration to allow us to do this surgery wet lab utilizing ethical source cadavers from a willed body donation program, which I was helping with the Student Animal Welfare Committee.
And then where were those from? People that
they were from people's pets who had
passed on,
been euthanized for humane reasons, or died of natural causes, of medical problems. And I was actually able to coordinate this wet lab, which was pretty involved. And
did you find the owners of these animals were very? I would imagine they'd be very receptive to it, since they.
Some are. I think it's a sensitive topic.
Right.
A lot of people are, disturbed by the idea that their pet would be cut open even after death.
Right.
But I think once they realize that it can help students learn anatomy and surgical skills and save lives of other animals, I think they become a lot more receptive to it. And that's actually what's used by the Western Veterinary School in Pomona. That's the newest United States veterinary school. They have a reverence for life philosophy, and they don't have any harmful or terminal use of animals in their curriculum.
Wow, is that going to spread, do you think, throughout the country?
I think it is. In fact, at UC Davis, where I went to school, they discontinued the elective terminal surgery portion of the junior surgery curriculum.
That's great.
Yes, and now they've replaced it with a senior rotation for vet students to operate on animals who actually need the surgery, and they're supervised by faculty members who are, of course, very experienced.
It's crazy, because that would have made more sense altogether in the first place, but...
There's so much politics and logistics and organizational issues that come up, so it takes time to change things. And there are always some people who are wanting to have that change and others who are resisting, and you have power struggles. So it's a process, and I'm happy that it's moving in the right direction. And I think that definitely one thing I will say is now you can get a veterinary education without compromising your ethics, which is great.
That's really big, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
that's very,
absolutely.
Very big. I mean, wow. What would you give people advice about when they're going into veterinary school about animal rights and what they're concerned about animals? I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, it would be scary to have that experience if they weren't practicing what you're talking about. It's a more humane way of learning.
I think it's, first of all, in preparation for vet school, it's a good idea to get a lot of experience, hands-on, in a vet clinic setting, get a variety of experience, try to see how things really go on and see if it's the right field for you, because 4 years of hard work is a big investment, not to mention the tuition and all the other costs that are involved. So making sure that it's the right thing for you. And then in the interview process, being careful not to disclose that one is an animal rights sympathizer is helpful, because there is, I believe, some discrimination against people who hold views.
The word animal rights or animal activist sounds like you're a nut. That's really unfortunate.
It's an unfortunate
it's way unfortunate
image that this movement has borne the burden to portray, and I'm hoping that we can counteract that through positive examples being set by the activists who are doing the right thing, and that's the majority of them.
Yeah, I believe that it is the majority of people doing that. I mean, I would, I've done demonstrations outside the Chinese embassy, because they were horrific. They were all horrific. I've got, I have anti-Olympic posters all over my car. I just, Are you doing? You're doing house calls now.
Yes.
And that's how your main practice is. That why? Why was it? Why did you choose that?
Well, I started off as an associate veterinarian at a 24-hour emergency practice in the Valley for dogs and cats, and I worked there for about 20 months. I got a lot of great experience handling a variety of cases. And then I went on to pursue training in veterinary acupuncture with the Chi Institute of Chinese Medicine.
Where's that located?
They're located in Florida, Reddick,
Okay.
Florida.
Okay.
Recently, they've offered a West Coast veterinary acupuncture course. So it's great for veterinarians on the the west side of the country. So I took that. The first 2 modules were in Sacramento, and the third was in Reddick, Florida.
Now, animals really benefit from that. I mean, I benefit from I know this animal benefits from acupuncture. It's really helped me in a lot of pain and everything. And I
It's
think
been used in China for thousands of years
yeah.
on animals and people.
Yeah. And you find it really does give a lot of people I know with older dogs especially, they always seem to have, they're much more mobile. And
it helps with reducing pain of arthritis and disc problems.
It's great. And how long was the course for that? I mean,
it was spread out over about 6 months. We had the modules each about a week long, and then at the end we had an exam, and basically that's the course layout. They have labs with greyhound dogs that are rescued from the racing track, and they're great because they're so bony
that's not out loud yet, is it? Greyhound
unfortunately
racing?
Not. So
and that's in Florida that they do that mostly, is it, or not?
I believe Florida and some other places too, but
those dogs
just
are
like with horse racing, it's still quite pervasive.
I just, the world of cruelty just never ceases to amaze me. The practices that continue, it's unbelievable. The people just have no idea. We were talking about working on the spay-neuter bill that we were trying to pass in California, and we failed because of all the idiots who don't feel animals are, worth. They're not considered as animals. I mean, as creatures of living beings.
They're considered property.
Property, which
exactly.
is a devastation. Yeah.
And that's really at the root of the problem, is considering animals as property rather than living sentient beings with interests of their own.
You know what really gets me? What makes me really mad? Or whenever the media, when you see a person moves into a place where mountain lions live, and they're all freaking out about how they have to kill the mountain lion because it was like scaring their dog. And I'm just thinking, excuse me, but where did you move to, you ass? Because I think the mountain lion knows where it's supposed to live. That's what really gets me. I get so furious on those stories. Oh my God, there was a guy bicycling near a mountain lion, and the mountain lion scared him, so we have to go kill the mountain lion. I'm like, how about we kill the guy? All right,
Well, we have to show compassion to everyone.
Guess. I don't know.
People are animals too, so
yeah.
I say the animal rights movement is really the most inclusive because people are animals and
they are.
Animals are people. Hey, it's we got to recognize that these, just because they happen to be on 4 legs and wearing a furry suit and not talking our language, doesn't mean that they aren't worthy of our concern.
Yeah.
And our respect. So. But I think that really what we need to do as activists, and one of the big challenges that faces the movement, is our attitude towards other people, and showing compassion has to transcend these barriers that society constructs.
Yeah, you mentioned that you had told me about a documentary that you recommended people take a look at called The Witness.
Yes, The Witness. It's a very powerful documentary. It's put on by or produced by the Tribe of Heart.
Tribe of Heart?
Yes.
So people can look for that.
Tribeofheart.org, yeah. It's the story of a man who transforms from just an everyday person who couldn't care less about animals to a rescuer and someone who showcases the plight of animals raised and executed for their fur. And just shows people's hearts and minds opening up to their plight. And it's very moving. And it's a very powerful documentary.
So you're way involved with this whole thing. It's really it's great. I mean, especially that you have that sensibility. You're a young person. You're not an old person, but you're a very wise person, and you have so much you can offer to people to educate them about animals and the care. Especially since you're a vet, they're going to go, "Oh, wow, she's a vet. Great." So you were speaking at the Animal Rights Conference last year.
Yes.
And I think Jeff might have some footage that we might be able to put it at some point, but we don't have it right now. Darn it. But how were you asked to do that? That's pretty impressive.
Well, I have attended the animal rights conferences since 2001. That was the first one I attended in Washington, D.C. And that's actually where I first saw The Witness. And I was vegan before that. I've been a vegan for about a decade now. And I've been to about 5 animal rights conferences. So he has asked me in the past to speak about veterinary medicine and how one can choose that career as a choice for an activist wanting to make a difference. There are all these different avenues available, whether it be law, medicine, business, where someone can actually build a career with the idea to promote advocacy and vegan living and so on through their career. And that's actually what I would love to be able to do more in the future once I have my own standing veterinary clinic. Right now I have my own house call practice, which enables me to be my own boss. I have a flexible schedule. I also still do relief work, meaning I fill in from time to time at various veterinary clinics around the LA area.
How do you find that work? I've often seen floating vet. They call them floating vets. Like, who are you? What's your name? You know, because I'm at the vet office every minute. You know, of my life practically.
Well, word of mouth mostly.
Just word of mouth,
well, I worked at this clinic in the Valley for close to 2 years, so they knew me, and they called me initially to do some relief work for them. And then, you know, people just kind of talked and said, hey, you know, would you work here? Would you work there? And, you know, it's a pretty tight-knit community in some ways, so sometimes a technician, a veterinary technician who works at one place will also work at another place, and, you know, the word will spread that way. So I've worked at about a dozen different places around town just through word of mouth, and they call me up, and, you know, I do a shift or two for them.
Now, since you're a very caring veterinarian, you do not do some of the practices that some vets do, which really upset me. Docking of ears.
Oh yeah, I would never do that.
Amputation of the body or amputation of the finger.
Unless it's medically necessary. I have no part of that.
People don't understand. I don't think they understand what's. I mean, for me, it's like, how dare you?
Yes.
I'm sorry, you didn't design the creature, and you
well,
have no right
see, the
to.
term declaw, it's actually somewhat of a misnomer, because what it really is amputating the toe.
Yes.
So, you know, the cats and dogs are basically on their tippy toes, so they're walking around like this, and the last digit is actually amputated. That's what the declaw procedure is. And some cats develop lameness, some have bleeding post-operatively, some of them are in pretty intense pain, even with the pain control medication, which is, of course, should definitely be used if that's going to be done. But I don't ever recommend declawing. I have seen cats become crippled because the bandages were wrapped too tightly by a veterinarian who performed the declaw.
Yeah.
I have seen cases where cats became very bitey and mouthy because they've lost their defenses, so then they kind of make up for that by biting. And if a cat is ever outside without his or her claws, it's game over, because they've lost their defenses. So
I cannot tell you. Well, now I rescue cats that are already declawed, and it just kills me that they.
And there's so many alternatives to declawing. There are scratching posts. I have 2 cats at home, and they love the scratching posts. And, you know, who cares about the couch anyway? Seriously, if you're going to have a cat, you kind of have to accept the fact that they're going to scratch things.
Right.
But just like dogs, they can be trained, and you can get them to scratch the scratching posts.
I always try to get people to understand, and I found just lately that I recommend the rope scratching post more than the carpet, because it seems to me that they'll make that association with the rope as opposed to the carpet, so they won't be going after the carpet as much. But yeah, I cannot place, many times if I have a declawed cat, I have to place them as an only cat, which breaks my heart, because I don't like to place cats by themselves. But they have that fear and that aggression and then also sometimes they wet in the wrong place, so they pee in the wrong place.
That can happen
I
too.
really try to discourage people and educate them, you know, at my adoptions, and I will never let anyone ever do it. It's just horrifying. And then of course the docking of the tails and all that insanity. That just is madness.
It's really driven by this cosmetic, you know, obsession with a certain appearance, and really all the dog breeds too. You know, originated from people selecting certain traits they wanted, and that has resulted in all these genetic problems. That all purebred dogs have a genetic predisposition to some sort of problem. Instead of, you know, way back the
natural selection.
The natural selection, which, you know, allowed for genetic diversity and hardiness. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen these little purebred dogs come in and have every problem you can think of. Skin problems, eye problems, heart problems. And then you see the mutts, and they're as healthy as can be, and haven't seen a vet in 10 years, and they're fine. And so it's really, you know, so important if someone is going to have an animal in their life, they need to understand that that's a responsibility. And if they want their purebred dog, fine. But they're going to have a lot of vet bills too.
Right.
And I think pet insurance.
I mean, they're so
worth
ignorant
getting.
that they think they're getting a brand new nice product, and it just astounds me because besides the fact that you're creating life when all the lives are being taken, that's the worst part of it for me, is the madness of killing all the animals that don't have homes, and you're going to make more animals. Are you kidding me? I rescued a Persian cat. I rescued 2 Persian cats that were dumped to the pound, and the one of them had polycystic disease. Do you know what that is?
Polycystic kidney disease, yes.
It was, and the cat died, of it. But apparently that's common in Persians.
Yes, it is.
And the poor thing was suffering, and I was so brokenhearted. She was a lovely cat. I mean, I often take old cats and keep them until they die, because I know I get really mad when I see old animals getting dumped. I get very sad. I can't do it always, but I often do keep animals until they die, that they were dumped, by their. I just want to. And if I saw the people, I'd want to kill them. But, that makes me so angry. But it's true. And I've heard that bully breeds, a lot of the bully breeds, the French bulldogs. They can't even. No, people don't even know this. Please tell them.
I just saw a French bulldog yesterday, actually, and the lady was telling me how many times she's tried this and tried that. The dog has horrible skin.
Yeah.
And she's tried diet changes, she's tried all kinds of medications, and it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, it's a breed-specific issue.
But man created that breed,
exactly.
Right? And it's not even, they can't be born naturally, right?
A lot of times they need C-sections.
Now that is absolutely appalling to me. That is, to make an animal have to go through that. So if you're breeding that dog, how many C-sections can the dog have before you dump it? I mean, if you're a breeder, if you're disgusting...
Whenever a breeder has come in requesting a C-section, I always insist upon a spay, because I don't feel comfortable letting that animal go through yet another pregnancy, which will then result in another C-section. And the trauma to the body, it's just... I don't think it's fair to the animal. I work at a spay-neuter clinic 1 day a week.
Right.
And I spay and neuter a lot of dogs and cats. And sometimes we have pregnant animals that come in, too, and we just end up, taking out the unborn fetuses, of course, in the process. But with the number of animals being killed, to me, it's just a service.
They're just passing on to heaven. They're just going quick. That's it.
Yeah, it does kind of weigh on me a bit, but I see it as kind of a necessary thing that needs to be done. And hopefully when more people become educated and more responsible as far as getting their animals spayed and neutered, and once breeders have a realization of their contribution to this problem and stop breeding animals.
They are absolutely, I mean, those people are so low. They are the lowest of the earth. We both went to Sacramento to work on the spay neuter bill.
Yeah.
And they have no concern. And it just is, it blows my mind completely. And then, of course, puppy mills. We've done a couple of shows about puppy mills.
Yeah.
And I just want to die. I mean, going back to the declawing, I went to the vet and saw a kitten with bandages up to here, and I said, and I didn't know. I said, "Oh, well, that poor kitten. What happened to that cat? Oh, he was declawed." I'm like, "Oh my God," because it was just so horrible to see that cat in that condition, a baby kitten. And the vet did it for his mother. He's a very evil vet. He takes care of the dogs from the puppy mill stores, and he puts down the puppies they don't sell, and he does declawing on cats. And his last name starts with a W, and he thinks he's a big hot vet here in Los Angeles, so I don't recommend him whatsoever.
Okay.
Dr. Werber. He's evil. What can I say? It's evil. He does declawing and docking, and he takes care
I don't know
of
if I would use the word evil. It's a pretty strong word.
You may not have to. You don't have to use it. I'm using the word.
Okay.
My show.
All right.
It's evil. But when I saw that kitten and he did it for his mother, and I was like, oh my God. Just.
Well, I think we have to look at this holistically, in that even the oppressors of animals are victims, in the sense that they're victims of their own mentality in viewing animals as not worthy of concern and basic respect.
Right.
And we need to enlighten them and show them what should be. But that oftentimes is a trying process. It requires a lot of patience on our parts, and certainly we want to get those animals recognized and respected and liberated, ideally sooner rather than later. Recognizing how many animals are slaughtered for food every year worldwide, over 50 billion, it's very daunting to look at that, and think that we can make a difference, but I think that we can, one person at a time, educating people, showing them little things they can do to help animals.
They do vegan outreach in the promenade, right?
Yes,
Every day. Is
I'm
it
involved
every day?
with that. It's actually twice a month, 2 times.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and we show Meet Your Meat, which is a video that shows the cruelty inflicted on animals in factory farms and slaughterhouses. And we distribute literature, vegan outreach literature. I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and Owies, the guy who...
Oh, Owie is the reason I'm in the
Yes.
promenade now is because Owie gave me the phone number.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he's great. He's been doing it for quite a
Right.
number of years.
Right. I met him at Nazila's potluck, vegan potluck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's out there also.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. So what I was going to say, another thing I was going to bring up was, we're running out of time, but when I volunteered at the pound, it seemed to me that my average age of animals that were going to die were 2 years old. And that was because the idiots get them as puppies and kittens and don't make a choice to keep them in their lives.
They don't make a commitment. And a lot of times what I've found in practice is people are given a gift, a gift of an animal, and they don't understand what it means to take care of a puppy or a kitten. They don't know anything about taking care of these animals, and all of a sudden they're faced with this responsibility. It's like taking care of a child. Yeah. But
you couldn't get
who
me to take a
who puts their child up for, who takes their child to a pound to
be killed?
It's unthinkable.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
We get to have you back, and it was really great talking to you, and I'm really happy about your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. May. We'll see you again next time. Thanks a lot.
Here. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm just walking my dog, singing my song, strolling along. Oh, it's just me and my dog, catching some sun. We can't go wrong. My life was lonely and blue. Yeah, I was sad as a sailor. I was an angry one too.